All right, and welcome back. And would like to now focus on our neighboring country, Tanzania, where polls opened in Tanzania on Wednesday for parliamentary and presidential elections. President John Magufuli wants a second five-year term, but there have been complaints from his main rival of irregularities. Okwi Oko reports.
After voting in Tanzania's election on Wednesday, incumbent President John Magufuli urged the population to stay calm.
I would like to reiterate that as a nation, we should continue to uphold peace because there is life even after elections.
But his main challenger, Tundu Lissu, is already complaining of irregularities and says his party's representatives have been prevented from entering polling stations. Lissu, who was shot 16 times in 2017 in what remains an unsolved case, has said he will not accept a rigged election. He's hoping to deny Magufuli from repeating his first five-year term, which international rights groups say was marred by a stifling of dissent, including the closure of media outlets and banning of political rallies. The government has previously denied any crackdown on opposition parties. Some form of Magufuli's CCM has held power since independence in 1961. In recent days, many Tanzanians have complained of difficulties when trying to access social media, and on Tuesday, Twitter and internet blockage monitor NetBlocks both reported widespread problems. In the semi-autonomous region of Zanzibar, also holding elections, local media reported calm after 2 days of unrest. The opposition presidential candidate there, Saif Sharif Hamad, was detained and later released as he tried to vote early on Tuesday. His party alleges that 10 people were shot by police. The police said they had no information about any deaths.
And joining me to have that conversation, we're joined by Mr. Nasongo Muliro, who's an international relations expert, also a lecturer at Technical University of Kenya. Thank you for joining us, sir. And let's just start with that overview from that story that we've seen. There's been general concerns raised about the credibility of the elections in Tanzania. What are your observations so far?
Thank you very much for having me here. I would say this, that it's not a big surprise, because from the later years of Dr. Magufuli, we've seen even they nicknamed him Bulldozer, and we've seen indicators of a heavy hand in terms of leadership. He has even to some level extended his admiration for how Lee Kuan Yew used some form of what some people call, in quotes, benevolent dictatorship to run a country. You know, he's designing something we may call a developmental state, where the state is very actively involved in the activities of the people, especially economic. So it's not a surprise that we are seeing some level of clampdown, some level of control. It's like the player is also the umpire, and he keeps on widening the goalpost of the opponent and narrowing the goalpost of his side.
Right.
Yes.
And Tanzania for a long time has been seen as, a hub of peace and tranquility. Do you think that is changing, looking at how the elections are going currently?
You are right. This is a big surprise. You know, you look at the history of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere and his policy of forced integration, although it is claimed to have been very cruel, but Tanzanians, you know, compared to other neighboring states or even the entire continent, would say they are somehow peaceful, and there is some form of cohesion within the state, even if it is a multinational state like Kenya with so many nations or ethnic groups within one state vying for the power of one state. But now, generally, you know, I would even give you an example. I was surprised. I have my students across somewhere, and we are doing online classes, and 2 students in Tanzania sent me, in fact, before I even realized, a letter and explaining why they could not join the class because the internet had been closed. So we would say that, you know, Tanzania has remained like a star following Kenya's, slight slip in 2007, 2008. But now, although I do not see it moving to a level of a violent clash, but I would say that it was unexpected that some levels of control. My brother, I would say this, that both of them keep on quoting Mwalimu Nyerere, but in a different way. Magufuli quotes Mwalimu Nyerere and said that he used to say that if you see a person driving his political agenda based on the region or based on ethnicity, then he has empty ideas towards development. But then the strongest opponent, Tundu Lissu, is also quoting the same and saying that Mwalimu Nyerere once said that the best way of development is when you allow people to make decisions independently. It's not about roads and the hardware, but if people are free.
And of course, we are still keeping a watch on that, but we have a statement that has come from Tanzania Election Watch, and this is a panel that has people from different countries, including, and one of the leaders is Dr. Willy Mutunga, who's a former CJ for Kenya. But looking at some of the concerns they've raised, maybe just to get your comments on this. For instance, the shutdown of internet on the 27th of October, and additionally, Twitter reported that it had been shut down in Tanzania on the same. This, of course, are hallmarks that make anybody who would want the interest of Tanzania guarded a little bit concerned as to why they would do this. And your thoughts on whether this is the way they should have gone, really?
I would say this, just like I've given you an example of what happened with one of our students, and I would say that it's the issue I was telling you. You widen the goal mouth and you narrow the goal mouth of your side there. If you look very well, you check what is happening is that Tundu Lissu appears to appeal to the youths. And in a way, Magufuli has also been trying to appeal to them through artists, musicians. But Tundu Lissu, even his address, has been, mostly on social media, and even when he was addressing people via video, and it was disconnected, you'll see that it is trying to tilt the field. But in this era, I think Tanzania should be best advised. Even if we know the system of technology and media has not penetrated so much like in Kenya, it should best advise that even when you look at the Arab Spring and you look at other areas, Nigeria there, if you want to raise more status of your opponent or other people, then try to curtail openings like maybe the media or social media. That's where now the youth will come up and want to know why it is happening. And I think, in my opinion, it was uncalled for. Tundu Lissu has been out of the country for almost, I think, 3 years, following his injury, and therefore the running for presidency in Africa requires continuous laying of infrastructure. So by even measure of that, you'd say that somehow, in a way, whatever the case, the sitting president, including even the power of incumbency, has a slight advantage. And therefore, there is no need to create
all those,
within the community.
Absolutely. And of course, Tundu Lissu seems to be the strongest opposition leader for the current incumbent, and that is John Pombe Magufuli. And maybe your thoughts on how this is likely to affect the region should, Tanzania become unstable?
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. If you look at the region, you'll see that, in fact, Tanzania should be like the second largest economy in the region.
Right.
And I'm also happy that when you look at the campaigns, in a way, Magufuli has been riding on development. And he has expressed some snippets of regional dimensions, like he'll complete the pipeline between Tanzania and Uganda. And even as Kenya, even if we are in a certain level, in some hegemonic rivalry with Tanzania by way of we have ports, Dar es Salaam and Mombasa and the rest, but then still Kenya as an economic hub in the region, and EAC also, we need Tanzania's stability to progress to another level of East Africa community.
All right, and your thoughts on how this is likely to pan out? We do know that the people of Tanzania are not used to violence, are not used to protests, but we've seen a very heavy hand, particularly just before the elections came in. We had, rallies being banned, and the reason used was because apparently there was, serious concerns of unfair play. Your thoughts on whether there's likely to be a revolt from the people of Tanzania should they view these elections not to be free and fair?
I think it will be, Pombe Magufuli, His Excellency, the President, is scratching a very unnecessary surface to expose something that is not designed for Tanzanians.
Right.
You are opening them up to the fact that you have rights. The world is talking about it. You have rights, and therefore those rights can be expressed through issues even like the internet. So when you close them, people start thinking about that. But I would say this, that I've been watching somehow, and when you listen to even people of Chama Cha Democracy and Maendeleo, Chadema, and you listen to CCM, you hear all of them talking about, no, we cannot get into war,
right,
but we are complaining about the way the process is carried. But I think also the hardest part where the world should be looking at, including the African Union, I hope they have put in place their mechanisms. The panel of the wise are preparing their pens and boots. Is that part where the government, I think the president has said that there will be no room for, after elections, there is no room for petition. That's we thought that is a system where there will be ventilation. You can run a petition after an election and still twist it, but then the tensions will go down. But what if you say there is no alternative? The story of Kenya, you just close that after elections, there is no petition after that. I think he's trying to read this from what happened, is it in Malawi, in that case. And I think I call upon the Tanzanians, is not extremely necessary to go to that line of violence.
And maybe as we wind up, your thoughts generally, what this implies for Africa. We know Africa has been seen to be a continent where democracy is under threat. Does this sort of validate some of those who feel that democracy is still a challenge for Africa?
Yeah, people say, there is somebody who came up with a very good statement and said Africa's challenge to democratization, in the sense that democratization as conceived by the West is unable to be applied and give the results that are expected in Africa. But still we'll say this, that Africa is grappling with the idea of what China went through, what even the US earlier, balancing between the free space, democracy, and then sparring development. So Magufuli is almost thinking in that line of the Chinese, that the best human right is when your people have money in the pocket. So you do not care whether they can assemble, they enjoy the liberties or freedoms, but if they have money in the pocket, then that is the best human right. But then we are saying that all the same, up to now, scholars have been thinking very hard that wherever Africa tries to implement the process of electoral democracy, there is a conflict. So is there an alternative to that? But still, up to now, research was going on. I think now it's 7 years, but still, I think we are yet to find an alternative. So the only way is to go democratic.
And maybe as we wind up, just your thoughts. Maybe it might be early to predict, but what are your predictions? Who do you see as the next president of Tanzania?
I think given the record, given the public stance of dismissing civil servants who do not work well, given the interaction between the incumbent president, and all given the controls that have been there and the resources, it's clear that the sitting president will still be the president after this election.
After this election. Thank you very much, Mr. Nasongo Muliro, who's an international relations expert, just giving us his overview on the elections in Tanzania. All right, and well, that brings us to the end of the show this morning at around 12 minutes to 9 o'clock. It's been a pleasure to have you right here on Morning Express. But we had that question that we had asked earlier on. Do you think the existing legal regime is effective in dealing with cybercrime in the country? And Trix, are we safe when it comes to cybersecurity and our knowledge of the gadgets that we use every day?
I think we need to take keenly and seriously the comments of Mr. Alo, who said we are sitting ducks. And given the little interest given to our question, I think that we could do better in terms of getting to know more about cybercrime, talk about these things and understanding what we need to do about it so that we can be safer in cyberspace. But on that note, I think that we draw to a close. Thank you so much for watching, and tune in tomorrow, same place, same time. My name is Trix Ingado.
Do have yourselves a wonderful and a lovely day. Take care of yourselves and each other. My name is Michael Gitonga.